Let us take an example on the principle of superposition. An edge-cracked panel subjected to combined membrane loading, they say axial and 3-point bending, right? So simple axial loading and the 3-point bending loading, right? So K1 for the membrane loading, K1 for the bending loading. Now here we are showing you that this is the normal axial loading, right? Axial loading. And this is the same thing, single edge notched. That geometry has to be exactly the same, right? The geometry, that the width is W, the crack size is A, it is right in the center, it is the edge crack. So all that is there. But this is the same specimen under this axial loading. This is the same specimen under this 3-point bending loading, right? 1 point, 2 point, 3-point bending loading. So because it is the same specimen, because the mode of loading is the same, therefore take the FA by W for this one from the table, take F by W for this one, and just add them together. So right, so this is your solution, and then you will be done. So we were just showing you, I did not go to the detail of that, but this is a big huge principle, that as long as you know that the mode of loading is the same, as long as you know that the geometry and placement of the crack and so on is the same, then we can combine the axial load with the bending load and so on. So now we move to a new topic. Relation between K and G. This is now major, because earlier, if you remember, we started that there is a stress concentration approach and there is an surface energy approach, right? And there were solutions by Inglis and Griffith and so on. So now, after doing all of this and telling you that the fracture toughness of the material can be K1C, the critical stress intensity in plane strain, or it can be GC, the critical energy driving force, right? Energy release rate. So both are fracture toughness. So now let us see how they are related. The two parameters that describe the behavior of cracks, energy release rate G, quantifies the net change in potential energy that accompanies an increment of the crack extension. Stress intensity factor K characterizes stresses, strains and displacements near the crack tip. The energy release rate describes the global behavior, while K is a local parameter. For linear elastic materials, K and G are uniquely related, linear elastic materials. Let us see now. Through crack, not edge crack, in an infinite plate subject to a uniform tensile stress, G is pi sigma squared A upon E, K1 is sigma root pi A. This is a flat crack. Remember, it is not edge crack, it is not penny shaped, it is not elliptical, it is infinite plate and there is a flat crack. So G is this and K1 is this. Combining these two equations, you can say sigma is equal to K1 upon root pi A and put it there, right? And so on. So you will see that if plane stress is satisfied, because that is how we found these equations originally, then G is equal to K1 squared by E. This is remarkable, right? Of course, as I said, that in the fracture toughness testing, K1C, plane strain conditions are satisfied, but in the derivation of the equations for G and K1, plane stress approach is applied. So if plane stress is satisfied, then we know that G is equal to K1 squared by E. Now this is an interesting relationship, a very simple one. If you know K1, you can find G. If you know G, you can find K1. What is the huge significance? You see, if you want to do experimental work, you want to measure these quantities, because these equations are there, but what are these equations? You have to apply them to some real situation. Some real situation means you actually do the measurements and so on. So the experimental way that you will find K1, the stress intensity, is a totally different issue. The experimental way you will find the energy release rate is a totally different thing. So you find it experimentally by only one method, and now you can find it for the other just by the equation. So this is huge, right? I mean, you cannot understand the huge significance of this equation unless you try to do them practically. Okay. So these equations were derived for plane stress condition. If plane strain conditions are satisfied, plane strain, then E is to be replaced by E upon 1 minus nu square. They had shown this equation earlier just directly, but now we are actually that the equations are originally derived under plane stress. But if in some practical situation we know that plane strain applies, plane stress does not apply, then instead of E, write E upon 1 minus nu square. This is basic theory. This is not fracture mechanics only. If we want to move from plane stress to plane strain, then the elastic modulus will change like this, right? So we have this, that define that we have the equation, not this equation. E is called E dash. This is general. E is called E dash. So this is the general relation between G and K1. This E dash is equal to E for plane stress, and this E dash is equal to E upon 1 minus nu square for plane strain, right? So you have this unique relationship between the stress intensity K1, right, for mode 1 loading, and the energy release rate G. You can now swap between the two. Now the topic of crack tip plasticity. So this is now, say, a higher topic, right? A higher topic. You are initially applying linear elastic fracture mechanics, right? You are assuming that the crack is sharp, and you are assuming that the material is very brittle. Then you want to add a little bit of plasticity to it to make the material more like normal metals and so on. Linear elastic stress analysis of sharp cracks predicts infinite stresses at the crack tip, right? If the crack is very sharp, the radius of curvature is 0, so therefore infinite stresses. In real materials, stresses at crack tip are finite because the crack tip radius must be finite. Elastic stress analysis becomes increasingly inaccurate as inelastic region at the crack tip grows, right? We assume elastic, but there is some plasticity. That plasticity is inelastic. So if that region grows, then our solution becomes less accurate. Simple corrections to linear elastic fracture mechanics are available for moderate crack tip yielding. So if at the crack tip there is yielding, there is plasticity, moderate, not too large, then there are some corrections that we do to the linear solution. Size of crack tip yielding zone, that at the crack tip, how much plasticity is there, it is defined by the size of that plasticity zone. It can be estimated by two different methods. The Irwin approach, elastic stress analysis, is used to estimate elastic plastic boundary, and the strip yield model. We will do both of them. Both approaches lead to a simple correction for crack tip yielding, and we will go one by one through them. So this is now a higher level, right? This is now a higher level, that you have the basic equations for G and K1 and other things. They are very accurate if the material is very brittle. But if the material has a small amount of ductility, then at the tip there is some plastic zone. And because of that, now the solution is a little inaccurate. We can improve the accuracy of the solution by these two approaches, Irwin and strip yield. Here I am just showing you, I like to do this sometimes, examination of crack tip plasticity using thermoelastic stress analysis. TSA is an experimental numerical method. phase difference may be used to size the plastic zone. So this is not part of our course right here, but I'm just showing you that there is crack tip and there is plasticity as the crack tip. So they have experimental techniques now where they use the thermal signal, and by using that thermal signal they can convert it and they can calibrate it and they can find the crack tip size and so forth. So these are now high level research areas, but if you and I end up in a company which is doing just this, then after training for a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, whatever, we will be very good at these things. This is another of those things from the internet. Maps of TSA signal and phase difference and line plots through the crack tip of an aluminum 2024 compact tester specimen of fatigue crack length, this, right? So now the exact size is there, the load is 1000 Newton, the load amplitude is this, the frequency is this, right? So the shape of the plastic zone found using the phase difference map is superimposed on the line plot and so on. So you see, these are now real techniques, right? Real physics is going on, real engineering is going on, and these type of works are there in different places where research and so on, where fracture mechanics becomes very critical. So, right, so those things are there, and we can get excited that yes, these important bits of knowledge are there, and some people somewhere are doing it. Some people somewhere are doing that. So let us see the Irwin approach for plastic zone on the crack tip. This you remember, right? Now, if theta is equal to 0, right, then we are here, exactly here, right? Theta is equal to 0 when we are right here. So this is an equation that sigma xx or sigma yy, right, this stress or this stress is given by k1 upon root 2 pi r. This we know, right? This we know. This is given to us. As a first approximation, we can assume that the boundary between the elastic and plastic behavior occurs when the above stresses satisfies a yield criterion. This stresses, if they become equal to the yield stress, then the condition is satisfied for the plastic zone, because we are talking of yielding at the crack tip. Under plane stress conditions, yielding occurs when sigma yy becomes the yield stress, the uniaxial yield strength of the material. Sigma ys is the yield strength of the materials. So we are saying that to define that, what will be the size of the plastic zone? The plastic zone is there because there is some yielding at the crack tip. So instead of sigma y, put sigma ys, the yield strength. Substituting into the above equation, sigma ys is k1 upon root 2 pi r, right? Sigma ys is k1 upon root 2 pi r, right? And from there, take this r outside. So this r will be the radius of the plastic zone. So it is just 1 upon 2 pi k1 upon sigma y square, right? You have to square it. So sigma y upon k1 will be squared. This root sign will be gone. So this r, the radius of the plastic zone for the Irwin approach, if there is some plasticity, and the condition is that we assume that the sigma yy is replaced by yield strength. So this ry, the plastic zone size, the radius of the circle or the plastic zone here, is 1 upon 2 pi k1 upon sigma y square. K1 is the k1 sigma y is the yield strength of the material, right? So this is the Irwin correction. This is the Irwin correction. Okay. This simple analysis is not strictly correct. It is based on elastic crack tip solution and so on. So we will talk about it a little more.